I'm open to receiving text. The number is there, 503-3471. If you want to text me questions. I did receive one, and they asked, what is an appendix for? So, Lenny, if you want to explain why we have an appendix, what does it do? What does it do?
The only thing I know about an appendix is it's like an appendix.
I love the appendix because, when I was a kid, we learned appendixes and tonsils and tailbones and pinky toes and wisdom teeth were all just leftovers from millions of years of evolution, and we didn't really need it anymore. And they're still kind of there just to remind us that we used to be apes. That's what our tail's for, and all that stuff. An appendix has no purpose. And because of that worldview, I swear, it took forever to figure out what an appendix was for. And I had to really dig deep to find out that it's just amazing. Yes, you can live without it, but when we were out there hunting and gathering and stuff like that, you have probably more bacteria in your body than you do actual human cells. And we have this amazing symbiotic relationship with bacteria. And so unless you croak, they're good bacteria in your gut, and you need them for digestion. And so you have all this really good flora or bacteria in your gut. And if you get an infection, if you just drank some bad stuff with amoebas in it or something like that, your immune system has like a little alarm system that says, we're being invaded, we got this really horrible germ. We have to flush the system out, right? And so you actually have this little sac off the intestinal tract near your stomach that will have always a storage of the good, healthy flora or bacteria that's in your gut. And when the alarm sets, that good bacteria is in that appendix, this little tiny little sac of storage area for bacteria, and the door shuts. And the minute the door shuts, the alarm goes off, and you get diarrhea and vomiting, and you get rid of 95% of the bad stuff, and you clean yourself out like a whistle, and then the white blood cells and the rest of your immune system take over for the residual little guys. And then when you're all, and they get the okay, all clear, and then this door opens up again, and this bacteria. Now, if you didn't have an appendix, and you weren't watching Jamie Lee Curtis pushing yogurt down your throat on TV, you would have to go days and days and days with very poor digestion because you don't have any bacteria in your gut. You'd have to wait maybe too long in order for you to really do digestion well. But because the good bacteria was in this holding tank, the door opens, that bacteria flourishes. It's such an empty room now that they can just multiply like crazy, and you're back to being a good digester. Yes, you can live without it, but man, it's a cool organ, ain't it?
Okay, thank you. Do we have a question in the audience? Okay, young man, if you want to stand up and state your question.
Hi. So I know before you said that you didn't want to talk about, what created God. So I'm not going to frame it exactly that way.
Okay.
But you talked about how, you said the reason, you kind of gave your answer briefly, where you said it's because God never really started or ended, right? And how God was infinite. And so my only question would be, well, why could you not assume the universe could not have that intrinsic property instead? Why do you have to attribute that to a God instead of saying, well, what if the universe has that property?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So, and if not, why can we assume that God would be infinite? How can I feel like that also would need to be.
That's a great question. If you weren't quite sure what I asked, I'm just Sarah, if I can try to repeat it. It's like, why can't the universe then be eternal? Agree? And at the same time, why do you have to insist on God being, I missed the second part, about God. Tell me one more time.
If God can be the creator of the universe, and God would create the universe, and the reason why God cannot have a creator is because God is infinite. Why can't you apply that logic about why there can't be a creator for God? Why can't you use that logic applied to the universe?
Okay, well, let me give it a shot, and then I'll probably have Jeremy help. He's the philosopher, I'm just a nerd. But let me share with you, when you say infinite, I'd rather use the word eternal, because eternal to me means you don't have a whole lot of time. It's not an infinite amount of time. It's outside of time. It's what Dr. Heap was saying, like you're literally outside the time dimension. We were talking about a really cool analogy where if you're trapped in this linear time dimension, right? You remember the past, you experience the present, you have no clue about the future, and then you have somebody outside of time, then it's all now, it's omnipresent. So just the very act of being eternal, I would use eternal more than infinite, because I don't want you to think it's just a whole lot of time. I want you to think of it as outside of time itself. So let me get to the universe one. All observational data points to the physical universe having an actual beginning. That in time dimension, in spatial dimension, matter, space, time, and energy out of nowhere showed up with absolutely no internal cause. In other words, there was nothing in the physical universe that would cause itself to begin. And as from a physicist's point of view, we're sort of trained that when we see an object accelerate, we're looking for the force. And it's an external force. It's not in the object, it's outside the object that gave it a shove. So we're always looking for the agent. We're always looking for the one that pushed, the one that started it, the one that made the explosion happen. So having other worldviews, other religions, when I was 22 and I was experiencing my little agnostic, atheistic worldview, I dismissed God, because when you're raised Catholic, you have a tendency to have all those restrictions, and then you're free, you're in college, yay, And so I had a tendency to wipe the slate clean, and which was probably a good thing, because I did a lot of homework about a lot of world religions, and everyone seemed to have God as part of the universe. And God is the universe, or we're all one, and there's a cosmic consciousness of the universe, but the universe is eternal. But science contradicts that worldview that some religions have. The physical universe that we know, the observational universe that I'm going to go by, without talking about multiverses and other philosophies that are not testable and not science. My observations is we had a physical universe that had a beginning. And a beginning infers a first cause, a beginner. And, afterwards, I got to tell you about the anthropic principle and what Brian Greene and all those guys who were doing string theory, what they did is the elaborate way they got around those observational things. What Stephen Hawking did when he saw observations that contradicted his worldview shaped modern physics. And it might be all wrong because it was based on a worldview that there's no God and everything is this way, the way I believe it is. And they don't know they're doing philosophy, and they're doing bad philosophy. So I don't know if I could help you, even if I went on forever about helping you reconcile that idea of, well then, why couldn't a universe be eternal? My physics answer is, observationally it wasn't. And so therefore it had a beginning. So for me, there's got to be a cause outside of that. And if time began when matter began, thanks to Einstein we know that, there was no concept of time before matter and energy and space. Time didn't exist either, then there was a time before there was time. And the only first cause you can have that would bring a physical universe into being would be something that's eternal, for lack of a better word, outside the dimensions of time. And that gets more into what Aaron was talking about. So that's about as good as I could get, John. Yes, sure.
So there are materialists who are uncomfortable with a beginning, and so they're trying to develop their cosmologies for an infinite universe. There's some problems with it. One problem is the second law of thermodynamics, and that is all systems run down. And so it's generally observed that what we see is that a system that's running down can't be infinitely old. The second thing is that pretty much everybody agrees that the universe is very finely, highly tuned, so that it has exactly the right circumstances for life. And so the way that makes it look like a designed and created universe, because a universe without a God doesn't really have a purpose or a mission. The problem with that is people invoke multi-universes. They say, well, if there's an infinite number of universes, then one of them would be designed perfectly by chance to allow life. But the problem with that is, number one, infinite set of universes is neither rational nor testable, and so it really doesn't fly. But there are people who, yes, would like to deny the beginning.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, what this gentleman was asking, I think is a great question. Happily for believers these days, science and theologians are quite in accord with the fact that the universe began. It was the expanding universe way back in the 20s with Hubble and whatnot. We were able to look out into the distant galaxies and see that they were expanding. And that's actually where the whole idea of the bang came from. Because the idea is that you're looking at an expanding universe. Logically, you're saying, well, at one point it was all together. Because it's been moving out for as long as it's existed. And so you could use an analogy like if it was a video and you hit stop and you hit rewind, everything would come back. And everything would eventually, over time, come back to that infinitely dense point from which everything exploded. And so science is in accord with the Scripture. That's one thing I think is really important. The Bible has so many truths that are in complete accord with scientific teaching. And that's one of them. And so it's not that you couldn't postulate that the universe is eternal. Indeed, a lot of people have done so. And Einstein wasn't thrilled with the Big Bang theory because it assumed, as the Kalam cosmological argument suggests, whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. And so it's not that someone couldn't postulate that. It's just that it's out of accord with what we know to be true. And that's across the board. I mean, that's most scientists in the field and most theologians who take the Bible seriously on that have a happy home. It began.
Okay, let's take another text. How is it provable that there was a beginning? Lenny, why don't you tackle that?
Well, the word provable always scares me. The word proof usually means that you're getting to a point where you've done experimental evidence over and over in a lab, and you keep repeating until you get bored, and then it's no longer the theory of relativity, it's the law of relativity. We're not even there yet, and we use GPS every day on our phones, but the law of gravity is pretty good. I mean, we got sick of dropping stuff off our table. So to prove that the universe had a beginning?
There was a beginning.
Well, I think, yeah, Dr. Ryan covered that pretty good. That the whole point play the tape back, and there's a whole lot of evidence for an event where everything was either microscopically dense, the size of a proton, or even a singularity. All these different concepts all have one thing in agreement: there was a beginning, and there's a lot of evidence for it. We can't get into too much now, but just there's a lot. I just want to point out to you, and if you ever get a chance, here's your homework assignment. Read or watch the YouTube video of Dr. Brian Greene doing a TED Talk about how naturalists and string theorists explain the anthropic principle, which seems that not only our Earth, but where the Earth is and where we are in the universe, and the universe itself, and all the parameters that would make the universe work, all 50 little dials that have to be fine-tuned to the right thing, like to an inch out of the Milky Way galaxy size. It has to be tuned to an inch in order to have it right. Gravity off by 1 inch, you know, no planets, no stars. If gravity's too strong, everything implodes. You know, all those things about the anthropic principle. I want you to have an assignment this week and look and see what they come up with to take God out of the equation. They're never going to say that. But you got to see what they're making up in order to explain that everything looks designed for humans to not only live on the third rock from a medium-sized yellow star in a puny section of the Milky Way galaxy in a local group, and everything is not only perfect where we are in our orbit and you know, water and everything is just right, but we're also in the perfect seat in the house to know we're just right. We're even in the right place in order to know we're in the right place. You know, and it's just like it's screaming designer with a good sense of humor. And so I ask you to, you know, look at that video with Brian Greene doing the anthropic principle and why things look like it's designed for man when it's not. Because you know, it can't be, otherwise we'd be special. You know, and I say that as sarcastic as I can, because that's what the worldview is. You're just an accident and you're nobody special. And I have a different belief system that took me, honestly, from my agnostic days when I was 21 to 22 to very recently, where I got to a point where, like, you know, I gotta follow the evidence. And the evidence is leading toward an amazing mind that thought this up and took the time to enter our three-dimensional plus time space.
Okay, do we have one from the outside? Anybody want to ask a question? Yes, sir.
What about faith? Don't you think faith has?
What about what?
What about faith? Don't you think faith has something to do with the manifestation of miracles? Because I've always believed that it was faith and God was the two variables for miracles. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, certainly faith is probably the most important thing. I mean, this goes back to one of the things I said just at the very beginning of my talk. We cannot prove the existence of God with science. Science also cannot prove that he doesn't exist. Bare bones, it's all about faith. At some point, no matter what our worldview is, it all comes down to faith. Either I have faith that God exists, or I have faith that he doesn't exist. So absolutely, faith is highly important to every worldview. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but faith is, well, why does faith need to be the
Yeah, I'm
driver?
sorry, I'm that's a great question. I want to know too. I always wondered why in the Bible Jesus kind of wanted and said, without faith, it's impossible. It was like he almost like walked away from people who were begging him to heal him, but there was like the trigger, like almost like faith was needed in order to, you know, fire off the whatever stuff needs to be done in order to do the miracle. That's a fascinating question. Absolutely no help.
well, and certainly, without that faith, there's not going to be that healing. I mean, you know, Jesus healed because they had faith. Because you have believed in me, I have given you this healing. I've given you this gift. So absolutely, the faith is necessary there. It does not remove, I'm not trying to say that there's somehow, he will give us everything we want just because he wants to get to know us. He wants us to choose him first. He's already chosen us. But before he reveals himself to us completely, we have to choose him. And that's where the faith comes in.
Well, that's where faith comes in.
Yeah.
Ron, you want to add to that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't think Dr. Heap is saying that you don't need faith, right? I think he gave us a beautiful example, illustration of how a higher dimensional being could easily step into our time and space. But definitely faith is at the ultimate issue. I'm happy that God has provided to us a reasonable faith. I think it's very important for us to keep in mind that in the Bible, faith is never contrasted with reason. It is always contrasted with sight. And so we can't see it, and yet there's an awful lot of good evidence to suggest, for instance, that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, the Messiah, the promised one, and that he rose from the dead, just like he said. And if you're interested, I do hope you'll come out next week, and feel free to bring your friends. I can't wait to hear Dr. Sanford's speech and lecture, and I'm looking forward to sharing mine as well. And it's powerful, and it's evidence. People who say Christians just have blind faith, they don't know what they're talking about. And so let's look at the evidence as Dr. Hortensi encouraged us to do.
Okay, I've got a text. If there are no vestigial structures of the human body and no junk DNA, and God does things with purpose, what is the purpose of male adult beards, and why do many Christian men reject, remove them, and thus resist the will of the supreme divine design? I'm sorry. That's funny, but if there's no vestigial structures of the human body, no junk DNA, and God does things with a purpose, what is the purpose of male adult beards? And why do many Christian men reject, remove them, and thus to resist the will of the supreme, supernatural, divine designer?
So this is really easy. A male adult beard is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And it makes a man look so much better than people that don't have beards.
Wow.
That's the purpose of the adult male
Or although he created us perfectly, we are in a fallen world, and that those with hair obviously may have been caused by degradation.
Wow.
I've got one for Dr. Heap. Do you have theories about heaven, what dimension that is, or if it is a dimension? That's a good question, thank you.
Yeah, there's a reason we don't know where heaven is. There's a reason we don't know where hell is located. And that is because it is not in our observable three-dimensional universe. It is in a whole other dimension called heaven and hell. So these things, heaven and hell definitely exist. One day we will be brought into a higher plane of understanding. We will be brought into a higher dimension, and we will be brought into heaven. But the reason we don't know where it is, the reason we can't see it, is because it is outside of our observable universe. But it is there. And I can't wait to go and see it. Just like I can't wait to enter the fourth dimension someday. But yes, it is there.
Okay, thank you. Let me take one more text here. The video at the beginning of the first talk claimed that naturalism is self-defeating, as it states that naturalists believe in naturalism because it's best for their survival and therefore not necessarily true. Is it not possible for something to be both helpful for survival and true? Why can't something be both as a result of adaptation and a truthful conclusion?
Yeah, this is a philosophical question, and I will not promise any humor, so I'm just going to answer it. So the problem with this is really evolutionary ethics, and if survival is the optimum goal, which first of all in an unguided random universe you can't detect anyway, that's the first problem, is where does intelligence come from, where does reason come from unreason? It doesn't make any sense. The second problem is truth is secondary to survival, so you will lie in order to survive, and your genetics will make you do it. It's a hard, deterministic conclusion. So the only reason why you're saying what you're saying is because your chemicals in your body are making you say that, but you're assuming when you debate or you are coming against a particular worldview that you are reasoning within your mind and your heart to come to a particular conclusion. But if we are just in the process of the naturalistic cycle that we can't get out of, you can make true statements, but you don't know they're true because you're trapped in this hard deterministic cycle. For example, this is the problem with genetic determinism. For example, they are assuming they can come to the conclusion that everyone pretty much does what their genes make them to do. That's kind of the theory in a nutshell. The problem with it is that it was your genetics that made you come up with the theory in the first place. And it's just self-defeating. You cannot get outside that hard determinism. It will make you do what you want. So if you want to survive, you're going to lie. So why should I trust anything that comes out of a person who believes in evolutionary ethics? It doesn't mean may not say true things, but I don't know. And therefore, why should I trust them?
Okay. Does anybody else in the audience have a question? We can take maybe one or two more. Okay, sir.
I have another question about the dimensions ethic. Because one of the things when I think of flatness, the first thing I try to think of is, okay, what would it be like to see through the eyes of a flat person?
The eyes of what?
Flat person. Right? And since there's only two dimensions, if you're looking through the eyes of a flat person, you're probably seeing in one dimension.
Wow.
Well, it's hard to imagine, at least for me, one dimension being anything but lines. So how can you determine anything in two dimensions? How can you understand two dimensions at all? And the second part of that is, we know the two dimensions are aspects of our current dimension, or of our universe, so to speak. How do we know that there is a two-dimensional world? We don't really, a two-dimensional world is definitely a valid mathematical construct. But just like a fourth-dimensional construct, how do we know that that's something that is manifested in reality?
Okay, with your first question, you are absolutely right. If we are a flatlander and we're looking at another flatlander, they're seeing one-dimensional things. Much like when I look at you, like I was saying before, I can only see your front. So, but I'm seeing more than two dimensions because I can see depth. I have depth perception. So, and it actually explains this. I don't know if you've ever read the book Flatland, but it explains in there that again, the people in Flatland are geometric shapes. So if they're looking at somebody straight on from one side of a square, let's say, it looks like a straight line segment to them. But when they turn a little bit and they're looking at it from a corner, they can see shading or shadowing to illustrate depth. So the further something is away from them, it's shaded differently than when something's a little bit closer. Just like when I look at you, I'm not just seeing two dimensions because I can see other attributes that give you depth. Even though I can't see your back, I can see, like, around your arms and around your body, I can see that there is depth there. And so the flatliner has that same ability, just at a one-dimensional level instead of this two-dimensional level when we look at each other. Remind me of your second question. I just don't remember what it was.
Just kind of, I'm sorry, but it's the idea of, we have the three aspects of our physical universe, right? Where you describe them as the three dimensions. Just like though we can say that a two-dimensional world isn't a real world, so to say, it's more of a mathematical construct and a what-if scenario. Why can't you say the same sort of thing with the fourth dimensional? This is a construct, it's a what-if scenario.
Yeah, you absolutely can say that. So I mean, certainly there are people who might say there is no fourth dimension, it's just a theoretical mathematical concept. But science actually says differently. There is common belief out there. I don't know if you've ever read anything about string theory or M theory, but physicists, Stephen Hawking was one of the leading people in this when he was around. But they theorize that there's extra dimensions that we can't see, that the universe is actually 11-dimensional. We have the three observable physical dimensions. We have the time dimension giving us a fourth dimension, and then that there are 7 other physical dimensions that are so thin that we can't observe them. And it's a little strange that this would be that they would come to such a conclusion, but there is physics backing this. There is scientific reasons for them to be saying this. Essentially, they have all of these theories about how our universe works, and they have a series of equations, algebraic equations and differential equations that say this is how our universe works. These mathematical equations govern our universe. But the only way for them to coexist, the only way for there to be a solution to this set of equations is to have more dimensions. And so the only way that their scientific theories can actually meld together is to assume that there are more dimensions than what we can see. And now most of the string theorists are in the 11-dimensional realm, but many go up to as many as 26 dimensions. I think those are the bounds. The lowest is 11, the highest is 26. But so I mean, the scientists are the ones backing this up, that there actually are these extra dimensions. We just can't observe them. They're too thin for us to see. So I encourage you to read a little bit more about that. I am no expert in string theory, but I am an expert in differential equations. And I know that it's differential equations that are telling them that they need these dimensions. But science says it really seems like there's these extra dimensions out there, even though we can't see them.
I just add one more thing is that I thought the lowest one was 10. When the string theory first came out, it was 3 lengths, 3 widths, 3 heights, and time. So it'd be a 10-dimensional universe. And what I found it fascinating is at the time when I was reading about the original string theory models, which, by the way, I don't know if I could say the scientists are in that, but it's a mathematical model that really works well. And that's why the scientists embraced it, but it's you mathematicians that are at fault here. It's because we have no observable evidence. We have no science to do other than make more mathematical models that are not as yet testable. So is that science yet, or is it philosophy? Is it mathematical elegance, but no real science yet, because we don't have a test? So I don't know. Is it science yet? I don't know. But I do find it fascinating that in the 12th century, I think his name was Maimonides. He was a Jewish rabbi, philosopher, that after reading Genesis 1, came from the straightforward reading of Genesis 1, concluded, and he wrote this down, that he believed that energy, time, and space were all created during that spoken thing. And then later on, if you read about what he said, it's creepy. He was talking about what trees and what herbs were in the garden and stuff like that. And he came to a conclusion based on reading that. Now remember, this is the 12th century, before particle accelerators and before mathematics, doing all this modeling. He came to the conclusion, and this is his words, that the universe is 10-dimensional, 4 that are knowable, and 6 that are unknowable. And that's how he wrote it down. I think like everybody's like, what does that mean, 12th century. And now we're looking at that stuff like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And he got that from Genesis, which is really cool for me and for Dr. Rowe.
Okay, I think what we'll do is we'll close here so we can have some time when people want to come up and meet you guys. I want to remind you that next week we will be meeting on Thursday night in a different location here at RIT, but it's up on the board. It's going to be Gosnell 1250. The time is the same at 7 o'clock, but it'll be next Thursday, so please keep that in mind. There's some more of these programs on the back table. The book table is out there as well if you want to buy some books. Some of them have been authored by these gentlemen, and they're willing to sign for you. If you have some questions afterwards, you can come down and read these guys. And we want to thank you all for coming and everybody that's worked so hard to help this happen. I'm grateful to our video guy, Rafi. The videos are on the Veritas website. You go to Veritas Rochester, you can see all of the talks. Thank you to our presenters, Aaron and Lenny. You guys did a phenomenal job. Thank you so much, and have a great night.